The story begins with the MC practicing martial arts, and his friend, after taking a punch, cannot accept the pain he felt and asks if he has perhaps reached subtle mastery. He replies that he reached it 2 days ago. Subtle mastery is one of the stages of martial arts in that world, and the levels are beginner, proficient, subtle mastery, great achievement, and lastly, perfect completion. His friend says that this is incredible, since when it comes to the Vajra fist, which is the diamond fist, no one compares to him. Su-hong asks if he rested enough since they need to continue training, but Oolong calls him a training maniac since he does not know how to stay still. He says goodbye to everyone, and the teacher, upon seeing the MC, says that he finally found him since he wants to know about the registration he was going to make for the martial arts course, and why he still has not paid the 30,000 fee. Su-hong asks if he can give him a few days, but he replies that unfortunately, he cannot, since even knowing that the family is going through difficulties, rules are rules. The MC continues training and thinks about the registration fee of 30,000. He also remembers that at 3 years old, his parents died in a disaster caused by ferocious beasts. Since then, he has lived with his uncles, and after learning about his talent in martial arts, they dedicated themselves as much as possible to helping him. After all, in that era where beasts roam freely, being a warrior is an extremely high-income profession. He is aware that he is training as much as possible to give them a better life, but he is only making everything more difficult. After some time, he returns to his house, but before opening the door, he hears his uncles talking about the rent and that they want to delay it a little longer so they can help with Su-hong's fee. His aunt suggests even stopping her own medicine since the disease has no cure, but her husband says no, since he will get another job, and she just needs to rest to recover her health. The MC feels bad hearing this. He slaps his own face and opens the door saying he has arrived. His aunt asks if he is exhausted since he arrived very late, and also asks him to rest a little since she will prepare dinner. Su-hong goes to his room and keeps imagining that his uncles have done enough for him, and therefore he needs to solve his own problems. For martial arts practitioners to earn tens of thousands in a few days, there is only one place. The next day, he goes to the underground fighting arena, and the announcer announces that the one responsible for defending the arena will be the Minotaur, and if he wins 4 consecutive fights, he will receive a bonus of 60,000. People speculate about who it could be and believe it must be a rookie. The woman asks him to hype up the place more, but he does not understand how he would do that. She warns that he only needs to use provocations or insults and says that a rookie is a pain because he does not know any of that. The MC immediately shouts that he is invincible and tells the chickens in that place to come at him. The crowd thinks he is arrogant and that he will probably die without even realizing it. Because of that, everyone begins asking for someone to finish off the Minotaur. The MC soon realizes that the underground arena has a heavy thirst for blood, but he knows it is the only way to gather money quickly. At that moment, a fighter climbs into the arena guaranteeing that he will win. Su-hong quickly realizes that the guy's momentum is strong, but his base is weak. In addition, the guy charges without thinking, and he takes advantage of it to use his technique, which lands directly on the guy's chin, throwing him out of the arena. He tells the next one to come up quickly, and the announcer celebrates the Minotaur's victory. Everyone shouts that it was incredible, and another fighter warns that he will not have the same luck. The MC imagines that this time the physique of his opponent is strong, and that he will be able to test his Vajra fist. The fighter charges, and the two collide their fists, but the MC sees an opening and counterattacks with his other fist. That's because the guy used too much force in the upper part and left his waist full of openings, and it was enough to land a kick that sent the guy flying out of the arena. With this victory, he tells the next one to come up immediately. Meanwhile, at the top of the arena, one of the organizers comments that the MC is not even a quasi-warrior, but his strength surpasses that of an apprentice. He is not so strong nor so weak and is perfect for armed fights. His subordinate asks to let him fight, and he tells him to remember that he must not reveal that he has already been promoted to warrior. Back in the arena, the MC imagines that with his Vajra fist at micro level, it is not difficult to deal with apprentices, and if he wins once more, he will obtain the 60,000 bonus. Suddenly, people shout that it will be the White Fox and ask if the guy is not a quasi-warrior, and if that is not cheating. Su-hong becomes worried, since it will definitely be difficult, although he cannot lose. The white fox smiles and tells him not to be afraid since he will be gentle. The final fight is then announced and the two launch into the attack. The MC is aware that his level is lower, so he needs to give everything in the first strike, and both collide their fists. However, with this clash, he quickly realizes that the guy is not a quasi-warrior, since he is much stronger, and he becomes concerned because his opponent is definitely a real warrior who deliberately suppressed his bloodlust. The fox releases a bit of his energy and lands his thunder fist directly, which manages to seriously injure the MC. People immediately realize that the explosion was from the thunder fist and that the fight is definitely over. The white fox continues attacking frantically, and the MC defends himself at all costs, since if he receives a direct hit, it will be over, and he needs to find a chance to counterattack. However, one of the blows passes through his guard and hits his face directly, throwing him to the other side of the arena. He thinks this is terrible since his consciousness is fading, until the white fox places his foot on his head, stating that he will not earn a single cent of the bonus, but says that his master is inviting him to join the group because with armed fights, he will have a great future. Therefore, he tells him to think carefully since the price of refusal is something he cannot pay. The MC asks if they really consider themselves warriors by doing that kind of thing, and the guy takes that as a refusal and says he will destroy his dream once and for all. However, before his kick lands, the MC feels an incredible pressure inside his body that makes him dodge the attack. Then, standing up, releasing his aura, he says that he will become a warrior, and therefore he cannot fall in that place. The white fox does not understand how he managed to stand up after receiving his thunder fist. The MC can only imagine that he will become a warrior, and that he cannot let the sacrifice of his uncles be in vain. A future like that is something he could never accept. A system appears asking that for the sake of his family and the beliefs he holds, what is the limit he is willing to give? He replies that he is willing to give everything of himself, with an incredible power coming out of his body. The MC feels as if he were in another place, and to make matters worse, a kind of giant monster is standing in front of him. This being says that he will give him that opportunity, and an aura goes to Su-hong and materializes in the form of a system. His name is displayed along with some attributes, and a mission is active. He finds this curious since it looks more like a touchscreen and decides to click on the Missions tab. Its name is Path of the Arena. He must improve his skills by bringing the Diamond Fist to great achievement and raising the Floating Light Palm and Void Step to subtle mastery. He becomes intrigued since it is a guide for beginners, until suddenly, a punch comes toward him, and he dodges in surprise, also realizing that it is a clone of himself using the Vajra Fist, and that it is even more refined, as standard as the textbooks. He does not want to miss the opportunity to improve and moves to counterattack. However, the clone grabs his arm and makes another movement, making him realize that that opponent is demonstrating how it is done. He receives the blow and steps back from the impact. The MC looks at his system and notices that the progress is at 10% and thinks it is a perfect opportunity to quickly raise the level of his techniques. So he runs into battle, and the two begin exchanging blows frantically. His fist keeps leveling up, as does his empty step. And the longer they exchange blows, the more his skills keep increasing until he finally reaches 100% proficiency with both the Floating Light Palm, the empty step, and the Diamond Fist. He feels a huge amount of energy overflowing through his body, and the system congratulates the player for completing the mission, and the reward has already been sent, only requiring him to accept it. After doing that, back in real life, his body is overflowing with an incredible aura, and the white fox moves to attack since her target is acting very mysterious and tries to land her thunder fist, but misses every attack. Su-hong, thinking she is far too slow, throws a punch that is strong enough to break the mask and also leaves the guy knocked out on the ground. The audience simply cannot believe what they have just seen, and the MC simply states that he wants to receive the bonus since he won the fourth fight. The announcer says yes, and congratulates the Minotaur for successfully defending the arena. The businessman, seeing this, simply cannot understand how an apprentice managed to use the Vajra Fist at its maximum mastery, and therefore asks his henchman to discover the true identity of the fighter. After that, the MC leaves but realizes he is being followed and therefore moves at high speed. The two guards do not understand how he vanished, but know they must discover the boy's identity no matter the cost. Su-hong is hanging from the top of the wall and an hour later manages to reach his house. His uncles, seeing the pile of money, become frightened and ask if he robbed a bank. He replies that he did not, since he was only sponsored for being a good fighter, and asks his uncles to believe him. The two become amazed since their nephew would never lie and believe the boy has a great future. Later that night, the MC goes to the rooftop and reflects that the registration fee has been solved and the rent has been paid, and he gives thanks since thanks to the system he managed to escape danger, but he has not seen any change in his attributes so far. Besides that, he notices he gained some martial points and decides to see what happens. After placing some points into vitality, he feels his body overflowing with an incredible aura, and with that, he realizes he has reached the level of a near warrior. Because of this, he decides to place all the remaining points into vitality, and after doing so, he notices his physique has visibly increased and his wounds have also been healed. As a test, he starts jumping from house to house, since he is filled with incredible vigor, and decides to go to the school's training field since it has a combat power measuring device. After arriving at the location, he walks to the device and concentrates the energy in his fist, and when he realizes he has gathered enough, he throws a precise punch at the machine. However, he begins to sweat cold since the machine simply could not withstand his punch, and he becomes worried that he might have to pay for the damage. To make things worse, someone shouts that they are hearing a noise and Su Hong runs away like a madman. The old man goes to the machine and simply cannot believe that someone broke the school's meter, shouting and guaranteeing that he will teach a lesson to whoever did this when classes begin. The next day, several students are gathered in the gym of the first high school of Xingcheng. The MC, at the back of the line, questions why Chen Shan was beaten. His classmate whispers that they discovered the boy broke the training field's meter and, since he did not admit it, he was punished by the principal. Su Hong sounds cold since he discovered who took the blame. The old man tells everyone to remain silent and says that he invited his comrade in arms, the grade 3 warrior Chentian, and that he will teach the Thunder Fist, which is a rank C technique. The class celebrates since it is the first time they see a grade 3 warrior, and this martial art costs hundreds of thousands in a dojo. The MC reflects that this technique was the one used by the White Fox, and it was indeed a powerful punch. He knows that learning this technique would cost a lot of money, and therefore he needs to take advantage of this opportunity. Chentian warns that he will train it from beginning to end 10 times, and how much they learn depends entirely on them. He positions himself and throws a punch into the air, demonstrating it. At the proficient level, one can produce 3 thunderclaps, and at the micro level, there will be 5 thunderclaps. Then he finishes by showing exactly the level he is currently at. He says that upon reaching perfection, it will be possible to produce 9 thunderclaps, but they should not be ambitious since they are at the beginner level, and anything is profit. All the students begin practicing, and several hours later they are completely exhausted since they made no progress at all. Lu Min, tired, cannot understand how he could learn this since rank C martial arts are extremely difficult, and asks Su Hong if he perhaps learned it, but he finds it strange when he sees that he disappeared. On the other hand, Chen Shan managed to reach the beginner level, and the boy questions how his brain works since he is definitely a genius. The principal says that the boy is the #1 genius of the school and therefore wants to know if there is interest in guiding him. The warrior finds it amusing since in any other city, that level is only acceptable. Then the two go outside, and Chentian admits he wasted his time since the class is very weak. The principal disagrees with this since the students are only beginners, and the man is looking for a top genius. The two continue talking while walking around the school until they are startled when they see the MC overflowing with incredible thunder throughout his body. The warrior shouts that is the 7 Thunderclap Thunder Fist, and he never imagined that there would be a specialist of that level in that school. The principal says it is impossible since he has never heard of it, and also points out that the clothes belong to a student and not to someone older. The warrior says that this is impossible since he only taught for half a day, and there is already a student at that level of mastery. Suddenly, the principal panics since, if he heard correctly, he heard 9 thunderclaps. Chentian becomes extremely excited since he understood everything, and, gathering energy in his fist, uses the skill once again. With that, he manages to advance to 8 thunderclaps, and managed to do it thanks to the MC who inspired him. The two run since they urgently need to see who the student is, but as they get closer, they realize he has already run away. The MC, already far from the school, says that he did not expect that training a rank C martial art would be so exhausting, and he also sees in the system that his Thunder Fist has reached perfection, and he must think about how to earn martial points to advance to the warrior level as soon as possible. But he does not know if he will achieve that by dueling normally, or if he needs to be between life and death. Sometime later, he arrives at his workplace, the Furious Thunder Dojo. Inside, several martial artists are training, and one of them asks why the MC appeared there. He replies that he had nothing to do, so he wanted to practice a little. At this moment, one guy defeats another, and this one says that he heard that everyone there is trash and still blames their master. Su-hong asks what is going on, and the boy replies that that guy's teacher is very strong but despises commoners like them, and because of that, teaches carelessly. In addition, that guy's disciple, the one with grape-colored hair, is also very strong. Leon prepares to deliver the final punch, but the MC appears holding his arm and tells him to stop taking advantage of others. The guy gets irritated and calls him to fight on the ring. He accepts, but before they could do that, the teacher arrives at the dojo and tells them to start the class. The grape-haired guy points out that he was lucky, but the MC gets irritated at how arrogant the boy is. Mushan warns that it is the last day he will teach the Furious Sea Spear and that he will demonstrate it only once. He positions himself and already imagines that he will demonstrate it only that one time, since he doubts that a bunch of trash could learn it. The MC keeps observing carefully, since he needs to learn it on the first try. After the teacher performs the demonstration, he leaves and says they must learn it on their own from that point on. The dojo students become furious, since he only demonstrated it once, and it is impossible to learn like that. Su-hong reflects that the core of that technique is not so complicated, and after preparing himself, he makes a precise movement and begins to practice in front of everyone, who find it incredible since they did not know there was a prodigy in their academy. At that moment, Leon returns to the inside, asking what the noise is and whether they somehow managed to learn it, until he sees the MC performing the correct movements and becomes surprised, since he needs to test his depth. And if he is truly a genius, it will be interesting. He enters the ring saying that he will give some tips about the technique and positions himself to demonstrate. A boy asks to remember that although the guy is arrogant, he is extremely strong. The MC tells him not to worry and also takes his stance, since he wants to see it for himself. Leon attacks by activating his Furious Sea Spear at the subtle mastery level, but Su-hong, after taking a deep breath, also activates the Furious Sea technique, but at the maximum level. The guy simply cannot understand how it is possible that some beginner has reached the proficient level. The MC attacks and both strikes collide. Leon cannot understand how someone who is not even a warrior can reach the proficient level so quickly. Su-hong sees an opening and manages to knock the spear out of his opponent's hands. In addition, the system notifies him that he gained another 35 martial points for defeating a higher level warrior, and he finally understands that normal duels also give points, and that he will be able to look for more people to train with in the future. Leon falls to his knees thinking this is impossible, since there is no way to reach the proficient level in the Furious Sea Spear, and that makes him question all his years of training since they were for nothing. Still furious, he stands up to attack because he feels like a useless person, but before he can hit the MC, the teacher appears shouting for him to stop. The teacher approaches and slaps him across the face, saying that if he does not have the courage to face defeat, then he is not even a warrior. In addition, he reflects that the MC, just by watching a single demonstration, managed to learn the Furious Sea Spear up to the proficient level, and not even the geniuses of the Imperial Capital or the Magic City are that exaggerated, and since he knows that Leon is very arrogant, even though he is a genius, it was good that he suffered a defeat, and because of that, he apologizes for his lack of discipline. The MC finds it strange how the guy changes his attitude so quickly. After finishing, he leaves since he became very tired, but at least he gained quite a lot of martial points, and also learned the Thunder Fist and the Furious Sea Spear. Another thing to remember is that the school exam will be in a few days, and the rich students have already prepared high-quality alloy weapons, so he also needs to prepare a weapon for the exam as quickly as possible. Since he felt comfortable using the spear, he decides to buy an alloy spear, but he worries because with the little money he has, this is impossible, since he cannot even treat his aunt's illness, let alone buy an alloy weapon. He wonders what other ways exist to earn money until he hears on a television that ferocious beasts are increasing day after day, and the Lord is summoning warriors to hunt these monsters in exchange for a generous reward. He sees a good opportunity in front of him. Meanwhile, at his house, Jinwei asks her husband not to work so hard since they received a large amount of money from the MC. He is aware of that, but does not think it is right to place the entire burden of supporting the family on the boy, and because of that, he needs to take the chance to build a good amount of savings. At that moment, Su Hong arrives at the house and asks his aunt to leave the work to him, and also tells Muram not to work outside anymore, since he is now managing to earn money and can simply stay taking care of his aunt. The man smiles and tells him not to worry, since he is only earning a few coins to help with the daily expenses, and is not pushing himself at all. Jinwei comments that the MC will spend a lot of money on training in the future, and because of that, they are saving as much as possible. He reflects that his uncles are used to a difficult life, and unless he earns enough money for the rest of their lives, they will not retire. Because of that, he cannot let this opportunity pass, and is determined to receive the reward for hunting the ferocious beasts, since he knows the wilderness area is dangerous. For safety, he decides to place all of his martial points into vitality. Now he has 95 points, and is only one step away from reaching the warrior level. 2 days later at the school gym, he is exhausted since he pushed himself very hard until he finally managed to bring all his techniques to the perfect rank, and only now, everything is ready for him to leave the city. He goes to the warrior base of Xingcheng and thinks that it is the first time he has visited the place, and before he had only seen it on television, and the warriors who are normally rare to see are everywhere in that place. He reads that ferocious beasts without classification give 300 coins. Initial level beasts give 1,000 coins. Medium level beasts give 3,000. High level beasts give 5,000, and so on. His biggest surprise is that he must cut the monster's left ear as proof, otherwise it will not be counted, and he finds it incredible how primitive it is. A man arrives at the counter asking them to calculate how much it is worth, and the MC believes the bag must be full of ears from ferocious beasts. At that moment, another group arrives ordering everyone to get out of the way, and one of them announces that the young master has arrived. Su Hong becomes intrigued since the clothes and the figure of the man look a bit like the white fox he saw in the underground arena. In addition, people whisper that the young master was beaten badly a few days ago and even disappeared so that no one would see him. The MC looks toward the group and the young master stares back. Su Hong reflects that it is not only the ferocious beasts that are dangerous since humans are as well, and because of that, he must be cautious. He reaches the gate and the instructor asks if someone so young will really go alone, but allows him to pass since ignorant and fearless brats are everywhere. The MC arrives at the forest and confidently says that he will return with a bag full of ears. 2 hours later, still in the forest, he becomes worried since he did not see any beasts and wonders if they are all dead. Because of this, he decides to search deeper, but as soon as he starts running, he runs into a giant wolf. He knows that it is the Black Moon Wolf, a ferocious beast of the initial level. The wolf lets out a roar and charges at him. He dodges the first attack and, gathering energy in his hand, strikes with the Thunder Fist, which sends the wolf flying violently into a tree to the point that it falls dead on the ground. He finally feels the sensation of fighting a monster, and it is more exciting than he imagined. His conclusion is that he can already kill a level 1 ferocious beast in the initial stage with just one blow, and he does not know how it would be against one in the middle stage. As soon as he says this, a giant furious bear appears behind him, but it is also defeated with just one punch, which makes him realize that level 1 monsters will not be a problem, so he just cannot mess with level 2 ones. He removes the ears and knows he already has 3,000 bonus guaranteed. At that moment, the system informs him that the accumulated Mad Do points are already enough to advance to Warrior and asks him to raise his level as quickly as possible. He becomes happy for finally being able to advance in level until he feels an absurd pressure and wonders what presence that was that he felt, since it is a beast on another level. He runs to see what it is until he reaches the location and gets startled since it is a black jade python, a level 1 ferocious beast in the final stage. The monster hits the warriors who are in the place, throwing them against the rock, and then attacks the MC as well since he was too close. He manages to dodge, but the snake attacks too fast and strikes him with its tail, throwing him far away. He falls beside a body, grabs the spear that was lying there, and stands before the serpent. The monster wastes no time and attacks, but he dodges while reflecting that to kill a monster of that level, it would require several warriors of similar levels cooperating with each other. Even knowing that his techniques were all cultivated to perfection, being enough to kill a black bear with a single blow, he believes that with that serpent, it is different. Then, he jumps onto a tree and uses the air step to gain height. Only then does he use the furious sea spear and throws the weapon, which pierces the monster's belly. He runs to retrieve the spear, and after doing so, gathers energy once again and throws it toward the monster, piercing its body once more. He continues doing this since he is aware that the difference in size between them is very large, and it is difficult to kill it with a single blow, but he can weaken it first. He is almost struck by another attack, but counters with the Thunder Fist and retreats immediately since his strategy needs to be like this. He needs to find an opportunity to attack again and then retreat, but he did not imagine it would be so exhausting. In addition, the snake is also at its limit, so he needs to take advantage of that. However, he senses something approaching, and when he turns around, he sees a warrior heading toward him, and in surprise, he blocks the attack but is thrown far away. The MC gets up and asks who they are. The young master comments that they met again and asks if he would not like to give that serpent as a gift. The blonde comments that when he saw him leaving the city alone, he was sure he would die quickly and did not expect that luck would be so good that not only did he not die, but he also found the black jade serpent gravely injured. The MC understands what is happening since apparently the group has just arrived to be saying that, and becomes worried since they have the numerical advantage and he cannot face them head-on. While thinking about this, the big guy attacks once again, but the MC gets irritated by this and asks if they really believe he cannot defeat them just because he received a surprise attack. Their fists collide, and the man cannot believe the terrifying strength he is witnessing. In addition, he receives a punch straight to the face that makes him fall unconscious to the ground. The young master admits he is surprised by the Vajra fist and concludes that the MC is the Minotaur. Su-hong also concludes that the guy is the white fox he fought in the arena. The guy says he has never suffered such humiliation in front of everyone and therefore orders his lackeys to kill the MC. He grabs his spear and starts running away, but the gang chases after him deep into the forest. The swordsman warns that they are greater in number and therefore do not need to fear a single guy, until Su-hong appears behind him and with his spear delivers a strike that makes the guy fall unconscious from the impact. The white fox becomes worried since he does not understand how someone can be so fast. They form a defensive formation, frightened, since they are hearing the 9 thunderclap fist, something that not even a level 3 warrior could perform perfectly. The young master begins to sweat cold since he has no idea how a boy has both the perfect Vajra fist and the perfect Thunder fist. The MC watches from afar since, if it were not for the fact that he fought the giant python earlier, he would have crushed all of them instantly. He throws his spear since he needs to find an opportunity to eliminate them one by one. The spear lands beside them, and because of this distraction, Su-hong approaches one of the guys and delivers a knee strike so strong that it puts another one to sleep. The last one remaining asks him to leave since their opponent is very strong, but the young master refuses since he cannot do something like that. The MC starts running at high speed from tree to tree until he reaches the spearman and also knocks him unconscious with a single blow. The white fox simply cannot understand how in just a few days a mere brat became so strong. The MC continues moving behind him, trying to distract him in the best possible way, and after preparing to attack, the blonde guy locks onto the location and prepares his attack void. Devastating finger. The attack was so strong that it destroyed a tree, and he keeps attacking in every direction since one of the strikes might hit by luck. Su-hong observes this since that power is immense and is probably a rank B technique. The guy shouts that he has already memorized his face and that if he dares to harm him, when he returns, he will certainly kill the entire MC's family. He becomes furious upon hearing this and moves even faster. The white fox begins to say that his uncle is a supervisor of the base, but before he can finish speaking, the MC appears and, gathering all the energy into his fist, lands a punch directly on the brat's mouth that sends him flying like a cannonball. The MC does not stop there and makes it clear that he should never have used family as a threat. The white fox, extremely injured, tries to understand how someone became so strong since he is clearly still not a warrior. While he says this, the black serpent appears behind him and ends him with a single strike. The MC realizes he fought for too long and the monster ended up recovering its energy. The white fox group finally wakes up, finding MC bizarrely strong, and they have no idea where the young master is until they simply look to the side and notice Su Hong running toward them. But MC tells them to get out of the way since the black serpent is advancing in his direction. He dodges the strike, but the snake devours one of the warriors. Because of this, the system notifies that he indirectly killed a warrior and therefore gained 30 points. The same happens with the swordsman since the monster killed him, and a notification appears giving another 30 points for the indirect death. He is surprised since he had no idea it was possible to gain points like that. The snake prepares to attack him, but he goes into the air using his air steps since he gained enough points to become a warrior, and knows that if he could find a safe place to advance, it would be perfect. No sooner does he think that, than he sees a cave right ahead. He decides to run toward the entrance, and the monster crashes into it, unable to enter because the entrance is far too small. Already inside, MC sees that the snake is persistently trying to get in, and therefore quickly opens his system and starts spending his martial points as fast as he can. He begins to level up his energy like crazy and feels as if lava, not blood, runs through his veins. His points finally reach 100, and with that, he advances to Warrior Level 1. He feels an intense power overflowing from his body, now that he is a real warrior. Then he looks at the snake since it is his turn to attack, and, concentrating energy in his fists, lands a precise blow that throws the monster away as if it were nothing. He does not stop there, and continues advancing toward its head. The monster tries to attack, but he firmly holds his spear and throws it against the monster's body. Then, he prepares his thunder fist and punches the serpent's head, which is smashed against the ground. The dust begins to dissipate and he stands before it, gaining 92 points for this kill. He reflects that to hunt the fierce beasts, he needs to cut off their left ear to receive the money, but he does not know what to do with the snake since it has no ears. Seeing no better option, he simply leaves, and on the way, finds the lifeless body of the young master, but thinks that the situation he ended up in was actually cheap compared to what he threatened to do. He decides to search the body to see if he can find something useful and finds a book containing the technique Void Piercing Finger. At nightfall, he returns to the cave and fills the entrance with some stones. He also concentrates since he memorized the entire initial method of the Void Piercing Finger and now needs to use the system to completely master it. In his mind, his clone manifests through the system and immediately attacks with that technique, but he dodges the attack and begins using the ability to improve it, even reaching 97% progress. But the moment he learns the technique, he is struck in the head by the ability and the counter is still at 1% at the beginner level. He realizes that it is no wonder it is a rank B technique, since even the beginner level already carries enormous pressure, and he needs to find a monster to test it on. 3 days later, he finds a bear and tests his new technique, which finishes the monster with extreme ease. He finally reaches the perfect level and expected nothing less from a rank B technique and knows it is already time to leave. After returning to the warrior's base, everyone is surprised by the Thunder team since they managed to get a total of 230 from their hunt. But this quickly changes when MC arrives and draws the attention of even more people. The buyer shouts that there are 72 fierce beasts of level 1 at the initial stage, 83 at the middle stage, and 17 at the high stage, totaling 406,000 blue star coins. The people around simply cannot believe it, and he worries, since apparently he killed too many and did not want to draw so much attention. Suddenly, an explosion is caused at the central base, and people ask what happened, since it is impossible for a place full of high-level warriors to be attacked. The one responsible for this was Yeki, the young master's uncle. He orders them to block the base to the point that not even a fly can leave. People ask what happened, and he shouts that his nephew and the 4 warriors who accompanied him were killed. People cannot understand how this is possible, since a powerful group of 5 people was killed. Other people celebrate this in silence, since they know Ye Feng's character, as he used to rob others just for being the supervisor's nephew. Yechi announces that a rank B technique that was with the young master has disappeared, and because of that, All warriors must be searched and they will eliminate any suspect. Suhong imagines that they have already seen the bodies and that it is clear they were killed by the black snake, and because of that, it should not lead to him. However, the supervisor looks in his direction and he cannot believe it. The team walks toward him and the supervisor comments that he heard the boy alone killed the equivalent of 400,000 fierce beasts and that such an ability is impressive. The secretary says that the boy is at most level 1 in the initial stage and would not be able to kill so many monsters, so he must have stolen the young master's backpack. The guards walk toward him, ordering him not to resist, or they will not be gentle. As soon as that is said, the tip of a spear appears in front of their faces. They cannot believe it, since they could not follow the speed at which the spear was drawn. The MC announces that he is a student from the first high school of Xingcheng, and therefore wants to know if they really want to search him. Yet he imagines that the director of that school is famous for protecting his students, so it would not be wise to mess with the boy. However, the suspicions are very great. In addition, he knows that if the MC really hunted the beasts on his own, it means he is an absolute genius, and they cannot make the mistake of offending someone like that, since the loss would be greater than the gain. Because of that, the supervisor approaches and says that the family's secret technique was stolen from his nephew's body, and therefore asks him to cooperate. Suhong also says that he hopes they will not accuse an innocent person unfairly. The man says that, as compensation for allowing them to search him, he will give 10,000 coins. The MC asks for 30,000 to allow it, and imagines that in fact, the young master was killed by the giant python, and while they do not find the technique, they cannot blame him. Yeki accepts the terms, and the guards begin to search him, as well as his backpack. In the end, they find nothing, and the supervisor orders them to give the 30,000 he promised. Suhong feels relieved, since he had the idea of getting rid of the book after learning it. Otherwise, he would be in serious trouble, and as he leaves, all he wants is to take a bath to change clothes. And afterward, he will go to the Warrior Association's evaluation registration, since he needs to obtain the guidance technique as soon as possible. Already at the Warrior Base Inn, he sees that he has 534 martial points, and in the past few days, he had been so focused on cultivating the void-piercing finger that he forgot to use the points. Even though all his techniques are already at the perfect level, he knows that each stage of a warrior requires a certain amount of blood energy, and if he uses all the martial points he has, the energy will go to 53, and a little more than 40 points would still be needed to reach the middle stage. However, the spirit and mortal body attributes have not yet been improved, and he does not even know what their effects are. Because of that, he decides to start increasing the spirit attribute, and even after increasing it a lot, he does not feel any change. On the other hand, when increasing the mortal body, the changes are evident, and because of that, he decides to add a little more. After doing all this, his energy is at 123 points, spirit is at 26 points, and the mortal body is at 36. Now, with the remaining points, he decides to invest 200 martial points into blood energy, and the rest will go to spirit. With all this investment, he feels that there is a colossal power inside his body, as if it were infinite, until he gradually begins to recover. He feels relieved for having returned to normal, since if he had continued with that muscular bodybuilder appearance, it would not have been easy to explain to others what had happened. 1 hour later, at the Warriors Association, the MC says that he wants to participate in the evaluation. The attendant informs that an employee will accompany him, and asks if it is his first evaluation since he is very young. She also informs that for a level 1 warrior, the blood energy must reach 100, and the combat strength must surpass 1,000 to be approved, and therefore wishes him good luck. People whisper that the MC is alone without even having a master, and trying to do that at that age is a waste of time. He finally arrives at the place, and right away it is announced that Fanjia has 102 energy points, and his combat strength is 992. Therefore, he was disqualified. Next, it is Liming's turn, who achieved 105 energy points and therefore is approved, only lacking the strength test. The boy positions himself in front of the machine and throws a punch with all his strength, reaching 1763 points, and therefore he is approved. Everyone around comments that they expected nothing less from the disciple of Jiang Ming, from the Furious Thunder Dojo, since all of those disciples are talented. The MC reflects that the Jiang Ming they are talking about is the teacher he met by the nickname Mushan, and as far as he knew, his disciple was Lian, grape-haired, but apparently he has more disciples. The boy announces that it is the MC's turn and imagines that he took the evaluation at that age because he is a genius, and another person who is also at the same age is ridiculous. However, he becomes frightened when he hears people saying that the energy meter must be wrong. That is because he scored 123 points, higher than all the others. Liming tries to calm himself since high blood energy is useless because combat strength is everything. The MC positions himself to take the strength test and keeps imagining that he advanced to warrior and even improved his physique, so he believes that using 40% of his strength is enough. But if he holds back too much, it may be that the combat strength will not reach the minimum required. Therefore, just to be safe, he decides to use 50% of his strength, but when he hits the power machine, it is thrown violently against the wall to the point that everything explodes. Liming simply cannot believe that he sent the strength meter flying with just one punch, and that strength is terrifying, besides not having used any martial technique. To make things worse, the score was 3004, considering that the strength standard of a level 1 warrior at the highest stage is at most 3000, so that number is unimaginable for a warrior at the initial stage. An employee comments to his master that it is the same boy from before and that his strength is simply terrifying. The man, recognizing that it is the Minotaur, says he is not even surprised after already witnessing that strength. Meanwhile, in another place, Linxian, who is the president of the Martial Arts Association, becomes furious upon receiving the news that another genius has appeared in the neighboring city and everyone is bragging about it. And if her own city does not produce more geniuses, it will be a problem. At that moment, an employee appears shouting because a monster has appeared in the warrior evaluation. She is startled, and the man explains that a level 1 warrior at the initial stage sent the machine flying with just one punch and reached 3000 combat points. Meanwhile, in the central hall of the Martial Arts Association, an employee tells the MC that first, he will take him to the second floor to register his warrior identity, and then they will withdraw the allowance. He thanks him, but someone appears saying that it will not be necessary, since she herself will do it personally. The employee cannot believe it, since the president of the association herself will proceed with the next steps. She introduces herself to Su Hong and asks him to follow her. He says that is fine, and imagines that that person is the president of the association, and that, as far as he knows, she is a level 5 warrior, although she is different in person from what he imagined. They go to the office and she asks if by any chance he is a student from the first high school, since the principal was lamenting the other day that the school that year only produced 2 ordinary grade 1 warriors, and in the end, they were hiding a genius of that level. The MC does not know what to say and asks why he is there, since he only wants to register as a warrior to withdraw his allowance and the guidance technique. The president asks him not to worry, since his warrior card and monthly allowance are already in progress because she arranged it. As for the guidance technique, she herself moves on to the matter of teaching and asks how much he knows about this technique specifically. He says that in the books it was said that the spiritual energy of the world is divided into attributes, and that the guidance technique is the method of absorbing this energy to strengthen the body itself, and that to absorb different attributes of energy, it is necessary to have a corresponding guidance technique. Linxian informs him that this information from the book is not wrong, but the technique is more than just a cultivation method, giving as an example the guidance technique of the celestial flames that she cultivated, mainly absorbing the energy of the fire attribute. At the same time that it strengthens the body, it allows her attacks to have the destructive power of that element. In addition, if one manages to project the elemental attack outward, it can increase the range of the strike, and if a grade 1 warrior can at least wrap the fist with a fraction of the attribute, it would already be excellent. He is surprised to learn that guidance techniques can also be used to attack, since he thought it was only to absorb spiritual energy, because the books did not teach anything about that. She explains that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has 7 attributes, which are metal, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, and wind. Although each attribute has its own advantages and disadvantages, in terms of pure attack power, thunder comes first, metal second, and fire third. However, the specific type of guidance technique that he will be able to cultivate depends only on affinity. Suhong says he understands, since it is not as if he could train any guidance technique he wanted. She shows the crystal sphere that is used to test affinity, and that the larger the illuminated area is, the greater the affinity. Ordinary warriors have around 20 to 30%. She herself has 80% affinity, which is already considered very high, so she believes that a genius could certainly reach or surpass 90%. He takes the crystal in his hand, thinking that the president is incredible for becoming a level 5 warrior so young and is definitely an absolute genius. And she only achieved 80%, so reaching 90% would be excessive. At that moment, the crystal's glow becomes far too strong, frightening both him and her until it fills the entire room. She says she cannot believe it, because he has 100% affinity with the fire attribute, and asks if he knows what that means. He replies that he does not, and she tells him that he can absorb 100% of the fire spiritual energy from the environment without letting even a single trace escape. She cites herself as an example. She has 80% affinity, so 2 parts of the energy escape when she tries to absorb it, and because of that, she is already a level 5 warrior and became the president of the association. She points out that his future achievements will be greater than hers, and she did not imagine that the city would produce a monster that does not lose to the geniuses of the imperial capital or the magic city. He finds it incredible since the fire attribute is not bad. However, he would prefer the thunder attribute since if he had that attribute, it would be better. As soon as he thinks about it, the sphere begins to fill with intense electricity to the point of becoming completely full. He comments that apparently his affinity with the thunder attribute is 100% if he understood correctly, but she is simply speechless because he achieved a double affinity of fire and thunder at 100%. And that is far more than a genius because he is simply a monster. Then he shows that apparently he also has 100% in the wind attribute, but she no longer accepts that because it is too ridiculous. A few minutes later, she sits on the sofa and simply tries to process it since what she saw is impossible because all the attributes gave 100% and that must be a dream. She remembers that people used to consider her a top genius since grade 5. Warriors at 30 years old are as rare as phoenix horns. But when she faces someone who defies all logic, she realizes that she is just an ordinary person. Only then does she understand that to surpass existences that challenge reason, other equally extraordinary existences are necessary. She believes that she has found that kind of person. Meanwhile, MC keeps imagining that he achieved 100% in all 7 attributes, and that if he focuses only on thunder, abandoning the other 6, it would be a total waste. Because of that, he asked the president if she could give him the guidance techniques of the 7 attributes at once. She explains that a person's energy is limited, and no matter how great the talent is, it is better to focus on only 1 or 2 types. In the past, there were people who tried to cultivate 7 guidance techniques at the same time, and after decades, they were still only a grade 1 warrior. He says that he understands and that he only asked that because he could not decide, so he wanted to test each one before choosing which one he will follow. She says that it is fine, but asks him not to do anything foolish by wasting his talent for nothing. Then she comments that his school's monthly exam is approaching. He says yes and questions her sudden interest in that. The president answers that recently the conflicts in the battlefield of the heavens are becoming intense. A great war between the thousands of races and humanity could break out at any moment, and because of that, the countries are investing in the geniuses that are appearing, and she wanted to recommend him. Therefore, if he manages to get first place in the school's monthly exam, she will be able to give a recommendation spot. He thinks about it and imagines that in the war 10 years ago, he was just a child and lost all his relatives except his uncles, so he answers that he will do his best. That is because he is determined that he will never allow that tragedy to happen to his uncles, and he will become strong to protect them no matter the cost. Later that night, in his house, he tells his uncles that he officially became a warrior, and they become emotional since they expected nothing less from their nephew. Suhong says that he will receive a monthly allowance of 10,000, and because of that, his uncle no longer needs to work so exhaustingly. The old man says that everything is fine since now, apparently the boy is the pillar of the house, and because of that, he will do whatever he wants. All Suhong imagines is that he wants to see the two of them living peacefully since from that moment on, he will support the family. Later that night, He continues concentrating energy, and after accumulating enough, he tests his strike, but soon returns to normal. He imagines it seems like a beginner-level technique, but does not know why he does not feel any power even with the guidance technique. He looks at the system and sees that there is a guidance technique tab, and apparently he has learned it since it only appeared now. He notices that the Celestial Flame guidance technique is at 5% of level 1, and he did not know they could level up since the president did not mention this. And he believes that if levels really existed, she would definitely have mentioned it. He concludes that this means the levels of the ability can only be raised by him and no one else, and he finds that incredible. He tries to see how to raise the level of the guidance technique and whether it uses martial points the same way as the other techniques. However, the system reports that there are not enough martial points, and he thinks it is better to first cultivate the remaining techniques and then find a way to gain more points. He continues cultivating, and several hours later, he unlocks the Thunder, Water, Earth, and Wind Guidance Arts Level 1. He realizes that all 7 types of spiritual energy are repelling each other, and it is no wonder that the president said that the genius in the past who trained the 7 types of guidance techniques was still a grade 1 warrior even after decades. He realizes that although the 7 types of energy exist inside the body, he can only use one attribute at a time. If he tries to use a second attribute by force, the 2 attributes will violently repel each other and will end up disappearing. The natures of thunder and fire are very close, and he wonders if they truly cannot be fused. The power begins to get out of control when doing this, but he keeps trying at all costs. The next day at dawn, he decides to go just a little further and tries at all costs to make these powers fuse until he finally succeeds and feels relieved since it took the entire night to do it. And his next step is to go somewhere to test it. Su-hong goes to the martial combat plaza of the citizens of Xingcheng. This time, he will try on a level 3 strength meter because that way he will not break it. He punches using the power of thunder, and this time, he will use 30% of his strength since last time. He used 50% and it gave 3,000 power points. Now the result went past 2,300, and as far as he knows, it should have been around 1,800, but it increased by 500 points. Now, his test will be a little different since he wants to see the result by fusing the power of thunder with fire, and he punches the machine once again, and the result surpasses 3,000. He is surprised because counting only his physical strength and the fusion of thunder and fire, with 30% of his strength, he has already surpassed a grade 1 warrior at the high stage, and his energy is still 123 points, so it is extremely terrifying. This is only the fusion of 2 attributes, and if he manages to fuse the 7 attributes, he cannot even imagine the level of power he would become. Because of that, he decides to return to his house to try to fuse 3 attributes. After doing this for some time, he falls down lying on the ground since the difficulty of fusing 3 attributes is infinitely greater as he tried several combinations with the 7 attributes and did not make the slightest progress. He wonders if it would be better to increase the level of the guidance technique to have greater success in the fusions, and since the next day is the monthly exam, he will obtain as many martial points as he can. The next day at the high school, all the students are gathered, and the principal points out that the monthly exam will be different from the previous ones, since the situation at the front line is tense. And from that moment on, there will be an elite training camp every year to select the geniuses who will train intensively. The resources of the training camp are vast, in addition to a large amount of martial arts, and pills, and grandmasters as instructors. The 3 best students in this monthly exam will be able to participate in the elite training camp organized by Xingcheng. Everyone gets excited, since it is an elite training camp, and moreover, a grandmaster there is a level 7, while their director is only level 3. The MC finds it funny since the president said she would give a slot if he finished in first place. But apparently, the top 3 will get a slot anyway. Liu Min goes to the MC and says that Chen Shan and Li Tu have already become level 1 warriors, and many people have already learned the basics of the Thunder Fist, so they have no chance at all. Su-hong says he is surprised, since he was absent from school for only 10 days, and these guys have already advanced to warriors. His friend says yes, since the director brought the veteran Chen Tian to teach the Thunder Fist and give private lessons to the talented students, and their energy surpassed 100 a few days ago. Those two can already produce 3 bursts with the Thunder Fist. The two geniuses joke with each other that they will show everyone what a true genius is. Chentian asks the director if he still has not found the genius of the 9 bursts of the Thunder Fist. He replies that he searched everywhere and did not find him, and already believes he might not even be a student of his school. Just as he says that, he gets startled by more people arriving at the test. It was Jiang Ming asking why the old man looks so startled, and saying that the quality of the students that year is not bad at all, and that is why he brought his 2 disciples, since when the exam ends, the first place will be able to duel against them. Hunli gets irritated by this, since the guy is clearly trying to humiliate him, but if he refuses, he will be admitting that the entire school does not have a single worthwhile talent. Jiang Ming then comments that, obviously, the quality of the students seems quite poor, and that if they want to refuse, there will be no problem. Chen Tian interrupts and asks if he is really looking for a fight on purpose. At that moment, Lian warns his master that something is wrong and tells him to look ahead, since he saw the MC among the students. Jiang Ming looks at the group and is shocked to see that Su Hong is really among the students. He begins to sweat coldly, since he never imagined that a monster would be studying at the first school and thinks it is a disaster, since he is definitely strong enough to defeat his 2 disciples without difficulty, and he himself would be the one embarrassed. Because of that, he suddenly changes his tone and asks them not to be angry, saying he was only joking, since his 2 useless disciples could never keep up with their students. Both disciples confirm this and say they surrender. The director and the instructor become furious since they are being provoked with sarcasm. Sometime later, already in the arena, the MC is called to duel Chen Peng. His friend thinks it is bad luck that Su Hong has to face an almost warrior right away, and tells him not to try too hard, since it is not worth getting hurt. The boy ready for battle tells him to give up immediately, but the MC simply disappears with his incredible speed, grabs the guy by the head, and slams him hard into the ground, winning the match. Liu Min simply cannot believe what he just saw, since he has no idea when Su Hong became so strong to the point of knocking out an almost warrior with a single strike. He continues winning all the fights one after another, and the instructor asks where Su Hong came from and why he was not present when he gave the private lessons. The director points out that he made a mistake by not noticing such talent before, and, since he did not give him the necessary attention, ended up wasting a prodigy. Chen Tian feels a strange sensation that he has seen him somewhere before but cannot remember where. At this moment, the semifinal between Chen Shan and Li Tu is announced. The two exchange frantic blows with similar strength, making it impossible to tell who is stronger. Li Tu warns that both of them are using the 3 Thunderclap Thunder Fist, and that if he does not use the trump card he has, he will not win. Chen Shan counterattacks and tells everyone to look carefully at what the #1 student of the school can do. The people are surprised to see that the boy is manifesting an attribute, and to make matters worse, it is the fire attribute, which has enormous power and only loses to thunder. Li Tu is not intimidated and says that anyone can manifest an attribute. Once again, the crowd is shocked because Li Tu can also manifest an attribute, and it is the metal attribute, which has even greater combat power than fire. However, it does not stop there, as the boy also reveals his trump card, which leaves Chen Shan shocked, because that is the 5 Thunderclap Thunder Fist, and there is not much he can do except receive the blow head-on. The director is astonished by this since the boy had been hiding his strength. Chen Tian agrees, since in only 10 days he not only mastered attribute manifestation, but also took the Thunder Fist to another level. Hunli says, there is not much that can be done against the micro-level Thunder Fist of the metal attribute. Chen Tian thinks it is a pity for the MC, because if he also knew some kind of guidance technique, he might have had a chance in the fight. Jiang Ming hears this conversation and calls his old friend to make a bet, saying he will bet 50,000 on Su Hong's victory. The director asks if he has gone crazy because even though the MC is very good, he still does not know the guidance technique, so he accepts the bet since it is easy money. The final finally arrives, and Li Tu says the MC was very lucky for not crossing paths with him or Chen Shan earlier. Su Hong thinks that after hunting so many fierce beasts, the students feel far too weak, but finally someone worth fighting has appeared. Li Tu tells him not to worry, because if he reached the final, he can consider himself the second best in the school, and he charges forward since he himself is the best. He wastes no time and uses his best move with the metal attribute. The students watching think this is absurd because the fight will end before it even begins, since he is using the Thunder Fist right away. The MC prepares and also charges forward because he wanted to see where the limit of his physical body lies. People cannot believe it, because charging directly at the 5 Thunderclap Thunder Fist is asking to die. Both fighters exchange blows non-stop, and Litu simply cannot believe that the MC used 5 instantaneous punches to neutralize the thunderclaps of his Thunder Fist. The two continue exchanging blows non-stop, and he begins to think that the MC is a monster because every punch he throws is heavier than the last. The people are surprised because Su Hong has not even used martial techniques and is already tied with Litu, who is using the 5 Thunderclap Thunder Fist. Shen suggests that the boy may have some kind of special physique, otherwise his strength would not be so exaggerated. The director celebrates because his school has finally produced a genius with a special physique. On the other hand, the instructor says that despite the impressive strength, Litu has already condensed his attribute. Therefore, the MC has no advantage. The two fighters step back after exchanging blows, and Litu gathers power to the maximum to use his attribute. He advances, saying that he has already won that fight, but Su Hong reflects that he wanted to see how far his physical body could fight against that guy, but it seems that will not happen. Then he decides to get serious because he will repay the respect and advances with his Thunder attribute. Litu cannot believe that his opponent can also manifest attributes. The same goes for the director and the instructor, who are simply left speechless when they see that a student has mastered the Thunder Guidance technique, since, combined with his special physique, it makes him one of the greatest talents, even frightening. The two collide with their blows, and Litu realizes the great disadvantage he is at, since the Thunder attribute is stronger than his Metal attribute. The MC says he has already seen the boy's trump card and because of that, prepares himself, since he also wants to show his own. With that, he lands a powerful sequence of the 9 Thunder Strikes Fist, which leaves the boy unable to believe how this is possible, but all that remains for him is defeat. The people are in shock for a moment and then celebrate this incredible feat, since they have just witnessed the 9 Thunder Strikes Fist, and it is unbelievable. Chentian admits that he did not imagine that the MC was the genius who had disappeared from the school and who possessed the 9 strikes. On the other hand, the director says he is not just a genius but a colossal dragon. The instructor thinks this is sensational, since when this monster arrives at the elite training camp, the geniuses from influential families will suffer an enormous shock. A golden carp does not belong in a lake. When it encounters the wind and the clouds, it transforms into a dragon. The director says that this time, at the elite training camp, Su Hong will be a dragon rising from the abyss, ready to fly, and the Magic City, as well as the Imperial Capital, will see this monster shine. After all that, already late in the afternoon, the MC returns to his house, and his uncle asks how the exam went. He says that he placed first, and Muram is happy to hear that, since in this way his boy will be able to participate in the training he had mentioned. At that moment, someone knocks on the door. It was a woman shouting, wanting to know if Su Hong lives there. He opens the door, asking who she is. The woman says that she is the mother of Lin Nian from his school, and, as he knows, the top 3 of the big exam will go to the training camp. But her son ended up in 4th place, and because of that, she wanted to negotiate his spot. She offers 30,000 coins for him to give up the spot. The 3 of them cannot believe such absurdity, and the woman becomes furious with that reaction and says that the training camp was created to cultivate geniuses who may go to the battlefield in the future, and that it is even a place where people can die. Inside, everyone takes high-level pills until they are sick of them and use high-tier techniques. So with his financial conditions, he will give up halfway through, and because of that, she says it for his own good. His aunt becomes worried and asks if it is really that dangerous. Muram tells her to calm down and asks if he can guarantee his own safety. The MC answers yes without any hesitation, and the woman asks if they will really believe the promise of a child. Muram replies that he obviously believes it, since participating in the training is his decision, and he will believe in that promise. Besides the fact that it makes no sense to believe a random person. After saying that, he closes the door in her face. The woman becomes furious and tells them to wait for elimination at the training camp. Inside, Su Hong comments that he did not hide the danger out of malice, but his uncle says that it is not a problem since he is aware that his nephew studied a lot and understands the training camp better than anyone, and since he has determination, he will face all difficulties. Chinwei finds that funny and tells them not to get excited since they only need the boy's safety. The MC guarantees that he will stay safe. Later that same night, he goes to the rooftop and imagines that he cannot let his uncle and aunt worry, and because of that, he will never disappoint their expectations. He opens his system and sees that he gained a total of 285 martial points in the more than 10 fights he had in the monthly exam, but it is still not enough. He also does not know which high-level techniques or trump cards the twins at the training camp possess, and to face them, he will prioritize increasing the strength of his physical body. He puts his points into mortal body until it reaches 64%, and he wonders what will happen when it reaches 100% and whether he will obtain some special physique. Another thing that catches his attention is that the guidance techniques went to level 2, and he does not even know when. That is strange since he only cultivated them for a few days and did nothing else, and he wonders if there are extra conditions for the level to increase. Because of that, he decides that he will try to raise the level once more. The next day at dawn, his guidance techniques advance to level 3, and not only that, but his blood energy also increases by 3 points, and that is a pleasant surprise. Outside, he says goodbye to his uncles, and the two try to motivate him once again, asking him to return home with another first place in his pocket. After saying goodbye, Chinwei finds it funny that her husband always speaks while trembling with worry, even while disguising it, and he says that he cannot help it since he does not want his nephew to worry. Suhong continues walking until he looks to the side, and the president of the association appears in a car doing a drift and tells him to get in. They head to the track, and the MC, curious, asks what the president wants with him. Lingxian says that there are some things to warn about regarding the training camp, since, as the president of the association, she had access to the data of some participants. So, from what she learned, among the warriors, there are some monsters who are already level 1 warriors at the high stage and are not far from level 2. In addition, the techniques they possess are at least rank B. The MC is surprised, since a level 2 warrior needs 200 energy points, and apparently, there are already people in the class who are not far from that. Despite that, he is not afraid of rank B techniques, since with his system space he can learn any of them quickly, even rank B ones. She reveals that he is the greatest talent she has ever seen in her life, without exceptions, but he lacks the same resources as the others, and, because of that, even if he suffers some setbacks in the training camp, he will definitely surpass them. He thanks her for such confidence. She is surprised, since even knowing that his blood energy and techniques are inferior to those of the others, he remains extremely calm, and apparently she does not need to worry about his mental state. After that, in the school car passing through the Tianlin mountain range, the two boys are startled when they find out where it will be, since it is a place where many ferocious beasts gather. The director asks them not to worry, since the training camp has a grandmaster watching over it, and, in general, there will be no risk of death. The MC thinks about that mountain range and that it is gigantic and crosses several cities such as Xingcheng and Yangcheng. Not only is the spiritual energy dense and the ferocious beasts numerous, but there are even beast kings in that place who are comparable to a level 7 grandmaster. The competition among the ferocious beasts is extremely cruel, and even if it is only a level 1 ferocious beast, its ferocity far surpasses that of beasts in other places, to the point that ordinary level 2 warriors would not dare to step into that place easily. They keep entering the forest, and a huge number of monsters appear all the time. They feel that something is watching them, and they wonder if the beasts might attack without warning. Suhong imagines that the training camp competition will probably be as cruel as the massacre among the beasts, and for some reason, he is liking that feeling. After some time, they arrive at the camp, and Li Tu says that he is curious to know the level of strength of the people present. The warriors stare at them and leave both completely intimidated, except for the MC, who does not lose any of his confidence and tells the two to keep moving forward. An instructor at the site tells them to wait until everyone arrives to begin the admission test. At that moment, someone shouts that a certain group has arrived, and when they look back, they see several cars arriving at the place. People step out of them, and everyone comments that the goddess Xiaoyan is so cool and beautiful that it is enviable. There is also Xinghei from the Lin family, who they heard is already a level 2 warrior. Lastly, the son of the city lord, Tiantuo, is considered a barbarian god who has 95% affinity with fire, in addition to a special physique. They pass through the middle of the crowd until the MC notices their presence and finds it interesting, since they are 3 elite geniuses that the president mentioned, and he is eager to see how genius they really are. The instructor announces that everyone has arrived, and therefore he will announce the rules of the admission test. The training camp is located inside the Tianlin mountain range, 30 kilometers from that camp. They will insert medallions inside some ferocious beasts, and they need to carry a medallion to enter the training camp. They will have to travel 30 kilometers in 8 hours. And once they enter the mountain range, it is not known what kind of high-level beast they will encounter, and in the worst case, they may die. Su-hong cannot believe he will have 8 hours, since it is too simple, and he will have plenty of time to kill as many beasts as possible to gain martial points. One of the warriors asks what he should do if he encounters a beast many levels above him. An instructor says that if he is unlucky, he will be eliminated, but someone will be there to rescue their lives. Everyone becomes upset, thinking this is unfair, since most likely the strong will be eliminated while the weak will pass by luck, since it depends solely on that. The instructor makes it clear that the world does not play house, giving the example of someone who arduously cultivated for 10 years and finally stepped onto the battlefield, only to be crushed by a single punch from a specialist who happened to pass by. In that case, he asks if they will protest that it is unfair, so if they do not want to encounter high-level beasts, they should act cautiously, avoiding all kinds of risks. They can also crush the weak or fight with numerical advantage. One of the warriors agrees, since anyone who fears death should quit immediately so as not to waste everyone else's time. The guy becomes furious when he hears that and tells him to repeat it, since he would love to go after him. The instructor makes it clear that fighting inside the camp is forbidden, but once they enter the mountains, it will not matter anymore. If a medallion is stolen, or someone simply hits another person because he does not like him, there will be no punishment. So everyone can do whatever they want outside the camp. The warriors glare at each other, creating hostility right from the start. The MC observes that the training camp is indeed cruel, since they encourage theft among them, and, with that rule, he believes more than half of the people will be eliminated. Thinking about it more carefully, he concludes that if he ends up fighting everyone, it means he will gain more martial points. The instructor tells them to stop the nonsense talk since the test is about to begin, and orders everyone to leave the camp. Immediately, they run to the gate and head into the forest. The 2 warriors who were provoking each other continue fighting even on the way, until they prepare their fists and start exchanging frantic blows without stopping for a moment. The MC watches from the top of a tree, since he wanted to take the chance to see the combat power of the famous twins. But from what he is seeing, it is nothing special, and even if he defeated them, he probably would not gain many points. Because of that, he decides to hurry and hunt some high-level beasts. The 2 fighters begin provoking each other, calling each other a poor bastard and a beggar, and this fight catches Su-hong's attention, who becomes irritated and believes he cannot let these martial points pass for free. He arrives interrupting the fight between the 2 and tells them to play a little with him. The warriors ask if it is some kind of joke, since another poor bastard showed up to bother them, and they want to know what level he has to think he can interfere in someone else's fight. The MC explains that they misunderstood, since what he meant was for them to stop fighting each other and for both of them to fight together against him. Immediately, one of them rushes forward, but the MC lands a knee strike that sends the guy flying like a rocket to the other side of the map. The boy simply cannot believe that a warrior of his level was defeated with just 1 blow, and he does not know what kind of fast technique that was. In the middle of these thoughts, the MC appears attacking and lands a full strike that almost sends the guy's head flying off. After defeating this guy, he goes to the warriors and tells them not to underestimate ordinary cultivators, since they will regret it. At the same time, in the control center, the instructors who just watched the fight question where the MC came from, since 2 warriors were in a heated duel, and the guy simply shows up and defeats both of them, and they believe they will count 2 eliminated. Monglong warns that no, since the boys did not request rescue, the test continues. After some time, the 2 wake up and are startled. Lejian becomes furious since he has never suffered such humiliation in his life. The same goes for Marcus, since if he had not underestimated him, he would never have lost. They stare at each other, and the boy apologizes for the words he said earlier since they were not true. Lejun says it is fine, and both help each other walk since they are willing to help each other with their revenge. Meanwhile, Suhong moves through the forest until something catches his attention, since in front of him another horde of giant tusk boars appeared, a monster of the initial stage. The boars notice his presence immediately and charge to attack. However, that was exactly what he wanted, and with his 9 thunderclap fist, he starts killing them, one by one, until he has finished them all. The MC becomes annoyed, since before defeating a warrior yielded dozens of martial points, but after leveling up and becoming stronger, the rewards are getting smaller and smaller. He realizes he needs to search for the medallions once and for all, and starts opening one monster after another, since the last 10 level 1 beasts had no medallions, and he is curious if that group has any. As expected, there is no sign of a medallion, and he believes he will only obtain them from stronger monsters. Half an hour later, he continues moving and reflects that after entering the forest, he advanced 3 to 5 kilometers and encountered dozens of low-level beasts per hour, and does not understand why he is not finding any. Just as he thinks that, the monster appears in front of him. He quickly realizes that it is a black tiger of the dark night, a level 1 monster at the final stage. Without wasting time, he uses his technique, Finger, that breaks the void and severely injures the tiger, which falls powerless to the ground. Without giving it time, the MC prepares his spear and thrusts it into the monster, thus obtaining 35 martial points. He realizes that with his current strength, killing a level 1 beast at the final stage is child's play, and while searching the monster, he hopes it at least has a medallion. Luckily, he obtains one since he imagined that high-level monsters would have them, and it took him 3 hours to find that medallion. This makes him reflect that he found initial stage monsters everywhere, but encountering that tiger took much longer, and apparently the deeper he went into the mountain range, the higher the level of the beasts, but the smaller their number. Although the black tiger yields more martial points, he only ends up finding one every half hour. So if he decides to hunt low-level beasts on the outskirts of the mountain range, he will end up gaining more points in the same amount of time. So instead of focusing on quality, he thinks it is better to focus on quantity. Since there are still 5 hours left until the end of the test, he decides that he will gather enough martial points to complete the progress of his mortal body. He carries out a massacre with the monsters, leaving none behind that he finds along the way. From time to time, some stronger ones appear, but he manages to dodge calmly, and while preparing his fist, he imagines that he has fought dozens of level 1 beasts, and finally found another at the middle stage, which with just one simple punch, he was able to launch the bear like a cannonball against a tree, which even while screaming in pain, realizes that the MC is not joking and is finished with another precise blow that even destroys the tree with the impact. He reflects that his mortal body has reached 60%, and he can kill middle stage beasts using only his physical strength. Currently, he has 254 points and needs a little more than 100 to complete the progress of the mortal body. Since he knows that only 3 hours remain, he decides to hurry to gather those points. Suddenly, a loud roar echoes through the forest, and he is startled since he does not know what that sound was, until a giant bird appears flying, and he wonders if it might be the legendary king of beasts, the Golden Peng. The monster flaps its wings, causing a colossal windstorm that leaves the MC surprised, since the power of a king of beasts is truly overwhelming. Some trees are destroyed, and the MC tries to protect himself, imagining what kind of ferocious beast that is. He admits that recently he had been a little arrogant regarding his own strength, but facing that top-tier monster, he realizes he is nothing more than an ant. Only then something catches his attention when he sees someone approaching the monster while flying. This is the level 7 Grandmaster, Tianli, who tells the King of Beasts that he borrowed that territory and therefore does not know what the monster is doing there. Peng, who is the golden bird, replies that he never said he would lend it to anyone. The Grandmaster makes it clear that he will have to beat the bird until it agrees and lands a direct punch that makes Peng scream from the impact. He tells it to stop making noise and begins unleashing a huge combo across the monster's entire body. Then, he once again tells the King of Birds to get out of that place since the territory is being used by him. The monster, even though furious, flies away but warns that it will get revenge someday. Tianli takes a deep breath and shouts to everyone in the forest that he is the level 7 Grandmaster responsible for taking care of the camp, and therefore they do not need to panic since the test continues. The MC is surprised since that is the power of someone at level 7, but he knows that sooner or later he will have to reach that level. Tianli returns to the camp and comments to the supervisors that he only borrowed the territory from the Golden Wing Peng and believed it would be easier if the monster had simply accepted it, but in the end, he had to beat it up. Baimu, who is a level 5 warrior, says he expected nothing less from a Grandmaster since he is as strong as the rumors say. Lins, who is also a level 5 warrior, agrees since the King of Beasts, who is famous for having an indestructible body, was subdued without mercy. Tianli tells them to stop the flattery and orders them to follow him to the monitoring room since he wants to see who managed to withstand the pressure of the King of Beasts. After arriving in the monitoring room, the assistants say that those are the monitoring recordings, and most of the students cannot move under the pressure of the bird. The old man sees that a genius killed a group of black tigers at the final stage and still resisted the pressure of Peng with ease, so he wants to know his name. His assistant says his name is Tian Tuu, level 1 at the final stage. He has 340 energy and a 95% affinity with fire. He possesses the special physique barbarian god body and has superhuman strength besides being the son of the city lord. The Grandmaster recalls that the city lord treated having children like a lottery and even had more than 100 until finally one turned out well. Then he asks about another boy he saw managing to escape the pressure of the King of Beasts using a refined movement technique. Baimu explains that he is Xinghe. He is at level 1 in the final stage. He has 325 energy and 96% affinity with wind, besides being from the Xingcheng family. Lastly, he notices a girl with enormous mental power, since she managed to use her mental strength to nullify Peng's pressure. She explains that she is Xiaoyan. She has 290 energy and 95% affinity with the wood element. The old man finds the geniuses of that year interesting since 3 of them managed to deal with the pressure of the King of Monsters with ease, and he wonders if there might be another talent. She says there are a few more, and, after mentioning the 10 she has in mind, says they are the only ones who possess at least mid-stage strength and did not lose consciousness under Peng's pressure. The old man realizes they are all children of influential families and asks about the students from the first school. She says those students are still at level 1 in the first stage and 3 of them advance to the camp, but they are nothing special. He tells her to forget about them, since he does not want to waste time with a school that has the reputation of being nothing special. At that moment, Lin shouts that something is wrong with another student and points at the MC, saying the boy just passed through the pressure of the King of Beasts and still has plenty of energy to keep hunting. Baimu reads about Su Hong and, completely startled, says he is the monster from the first school. Her partner grabs the report and tells her not to scare the Grandmaster with this monster talk, but he also becomes shocked when reading about the MC. The old man decides to look as well, since he does not understand why 2 level 5 warriors are so startled by a mere level 1. After all, they have already witnessed all kinds of monsters. However, he is even more shocked and questions whether the boy is truly human. This is because the report states that the MC has 100% affinity with all attributes and also possesses a special physique, and he does not know if another monster like this exists in the world. The old man becomes extremely excited, since it makes no sense for such a monster to appear in a small city, as he is a genius that appears once every millennium. He realizes that he has finally found a treasure, but stops to reflect since the MC is only level 1 and has 123 energy, which makes no sense. Baimu, a bit embarrassed, reveals that the boy is cultivating the 7 techniques simultaneously, and because of that, his energy barely rises. He becomes furious when hearing this, since it explains why his blood energy is not rising. After all, not even a god could accomplish such a feat, and he does not understand what the association president is doing, since apparently she did not properly explain things to the boy. At that moment, an instructor reports that some students have returned to the camp, and when he goes outside, he notices that the 3 geniuses arrived together. 6 hours after the beginning of the test, more students arrive even though they are completely exhausted. 7.5 hours later, everyone is restless, asking to end the test soon since they are certain no one else will appear after so much time. The Grandmaster wonders where the MC monster is since he has not appeared yet, and he does not want to lose such a precious treasure even in his dreams. Only then does he feel relieved when he spots him. Su-hong, completely exhausted, thinks he made it and was so focused on gaining points that he almost forgot about the time. He enters the camp and the warriors cannot believe how dirty he is and cannot even imagine how many beasts he killed to end up in that state. The two guys who got beaten by him become excited since they want revenge, although Marcus tells them to calm down, since once they enter the training field, they will have many ways to teach him a lesson. The three geniuses realize that the MC passed in last place and is probably an interesting specialist. The instructor announces that the 8-hour time is over, and whoever has not arrived by now will be eliminated from the test. And the next step is to present the camp's facilities and rules. He informs them that the camp has several important facilities, namely the gravity training room, the movement training room, the ferocious beast laboratories, and the martial techniques pavilion. In the pavilion, they can exchange for martial techniques, movement techniques, pills, and weapons, and the highest level reaches rank A. MC hears this, and soon realizes that his decision to go to the camp is proving to be more and more worthwhile. Linz warns that in order to use all the facilities, they will need enough contribution points, and there is only one way to obtain them, which is through each training subject. Basically, excellent performance guarantees extra rewards, and, since it is late, he says that whoever wants to train can go, and the injured students must accompany him to the dormitory, since they cannot allow them to die for no reason. MC goes to his room and feels relieved that it is a single room, since in the future, when he cultivates and levels up, he will not have to worry about disturbances. He opens his system, since the moment has finally arrived, because he has 354 martial points and will complete the mortal body. He begins to distribute the points until the evolution of the mortal body reaches 100% and his body prepares for this evolution. The power begins to spread throughout his entire body until the enormous pressure gradually dissipates until it completely calms down. He finds it incredible, since just an explosion of physical power already has such strength, and he reads in the system that the talent obtained was the supreme body, a resistance with the greatest physical strength among all bodies in the world. He admits that he has never heard of it, and also notices that the spiritual grade is at 0%, which means that the supreme body can still level up and will probably be extremely challenging. He cannot hold back his excitement, since he needs to test exactly how great the strength of that supreme body is. He picks up his spear to go test it, but is startled when he sees that the weapon is made of rank C alloy, and just by holding it, he almost broke the metal, and he becomes worried since they are very expensive, and he even spent a fortune. Only then does he remember that, in fact, he found that spear in the middle of the forest, and, from that moment on, he will gather contribution points as quickly as possible to exchange it for a rank A spear. He puts on his jacket, imagining that he will earn contribution points just by using a weighted vest, and wonders how many hundreds of kilos he will be able to endure. He goes to the warehouse, and people are simply impressed, since Tiantuo endured 3.000 kilos and even said it felt light, managing to jump with ease. Xiaoyan comments that Tiantuo's strength is definitely equal to that of a monster. The supervisors are observing from the monitoring room and say that they expected nothing less from a great genius, since he managed to carry 3.000 kilos with ease. Baimu, intrigued, asks when they will speak in detail with MC about him cultivating 7 guidance techniques simultaneously. The old man says they cannot be so direct, since geniuses have strong pride, and speaking directly will only cause the opposite effect, and they will have to use some methods to make the boy give up on his own. Then, he asks if the warriors organized for the night attack have already gathered. His assistant says it will take some time, since organizing people to match the strength of each student is a bit complicated, and excited, says that they have just finished the test and must have their guard down, and when they suffer a surprise night attack, they will fall into despair. The old man agrees and orders them to prepare a level 1 warrior in the final stage for MC, since he wants to see the boy crushed and defeated before explaining the disadvantages of cultivating 7 techniques at the same time. His assistants are shocked by this, since the blood energy of a level 1 warrior in the final stage exceeds 400 points, and the combat power is above 5.000, while Su-hong's blood energy is only 100, and they wonder if it is not too dangerous and could end up destroying the boy's conviction. He replies that this is nonsense, since he is only correcting his mistake, and if his conviction is destroyed that easily, then he is nothing but trash. Meanwhile, outside, everyone is commenting that the genius Tiantuo will train in the gravity room, and because of that, everyone runs there just to see it. Su-hong arrives to do the weight test and sees that the room is empty. He picks up the so-called smart bracelet that calculates the points and goes to where the weights are. He notices that the heaviest one reaches 10 tons and is made of super heavy alloy, and he cannot imagine who could move that. He picks it up just to test and realizes that it is far too heavy, and although it would even be possible to wear it, it would greatly harm his speed and he would not be able to endure it for long. He decides to take the 5-ton one and tests it by jumping in every direction. After testing it, he realizes that currently it is the most suitable weight for him to move normally, and he starts imagining what weight the trio of super geniuses used, since they are at level 1 in the final stage and might even be a little stronger. In any case, he puts his clothes back on since he also wants to observe their training to learn something. Everyone is gathered, surprised, since Tiantuo entered the gravity room without even removing his 3-ton vest and even set the gravity to 2 times, which is absurd since he is under pressure as if it were 6 tons. Only then does the MC realize that Tiantuo's weight is only 3 tons, and apparently he had the wrong idea about the boy. At that moment, he sees the other 2 students from his school and asks if they will not train in the gravity room. They reply that the people there are far too strong and they are falling too far behind, and that if they entered the room, they would only embarrass themselves. The MC tells them not to say that and goes to the room. His friends ask if he is not afraid of embarrassing himself. The same goes for the other warriors who point out that the MC is a clueless guy and that he probably is not even wearing a weighted suit and wants to try to surpass Tiantuo by multiplying the gravity. Su-hong enters the room since he knows that a gravity room costs a fortune and only influential families could afford one, and therefore he cannot let this opportunity pass. Inside, he reflects that he is wearing a vest of 5,000 kilos, and if he doubles the gravity, it would be as if he were wearing a vest of 10 tons, and he would only endure it for a few minutes. Because of that, he sets it to 1.5, since that way, he will be able to endure it for longer. However, he feels his body becoming extremely heavy. People begin to mock him while watching through the big screen and say that he set the gravity to only 1.5 and is not even wearing a vest, and that he definitely is nothing more than a weakling. The MC begins to meditate, thinking that he could expect nothing less from such an expensive gravity room, since the difficulty of cultivating the guidance techniques increased a lot, but the cultivation speed accelerated drastically. 2 hours later, he continues meditating but is completely exhausted. He notices that except for the thunder and flame techniques, all the others have increased 1 level, and his blood energy increased from 126 to 130 points. He turns off the device since he is confident that the movement room and the ferocious beasts room must be just as incredible as the gravity room. He leaves the room completely exhausted, and some warriors, seeing this, say that the last place finally came out, and since he is not wearing a weighted suit, it is pathetic for him to be sweating under a gravity of 1.5. However, he removes his shirt since the weighted vest has terrible ventilation and is making him die from the heat. Only then do the 2 boys enter a state of shock when they see that Su-hong is actually wearing a 5,000 vest and that he was even using it inside the gravity room. They believe they saw it wrong and think about asking how many kilos it actually has. His friend says that, judging by the fact that he finished in last place, he believes it is actually a weight of 500 kilos and not 5,000, and it was something so heavy that it felt like torture. But even so, it shows that the MC is not that weak. They say that one way or another, he does not compare to Tiantuo at all. At that moment, everyone starts shouting that Tiantuo is leaving the room with 6 tons of pressure and endured it for 2 hours. They think this is insane, since the guy's physical resistance is definitely that of number 1 in the training camp, and if it were them, they themselves would barely be able to handle 500 kilos. The genius throws the weight on the ground, which falls with such force that it leaves everyone in the camp shocked by that weight. Tiantuo feels relieved, since he now feels light again. His partner admits that he cannot compare in strength and calls him to go to the movement techniques room to compare there. Tiantuo tells him to stop joking, since the guy is a practitioner of rank A movement techniques, in addition to having the wind attribute, so it would be idiotic to try to compare. Soo-hong hears about this rank A movement technique and finds it interesting, since even having the supreme body, he is interested in a movement technique of such a high level. Everyone goes to the place and is surprised by Xing-hei, since the guy is at level 10, while they themselves can barely reach level 3. The white-haired genius is so fast that their eyes can barely follow for a second, and he still has energy to show off, since petals of flowers are coming out from somewhere, and they have no idea why. The MC immediately copies the steps of the ascending Hong and analyzes them every second. Then, he begins to walk toward the machine, which draws everyone's attention. The MC starts dodging the lasers, and people cannot believe that he, just by watching, managed to copy Xing-hei's movements, and they cannot believe it is possible to copy a rank A technique so easily. Soo-hong, inside his system, is repeating the movement he witnessed hundreds of times, and increasing his proficiency more and more until he finally manages to obtain the ascending Hong steps at beginner level. He feels relieved, since he now has his first rank A ability, but he found Xing-hei's movements very extravagant and embarrassing, and he had never seen that technique being performed in a normal way, so he had to copy it exactly. Having learned the technique, he knows he no longer needs to train in the movement room, since he can go straight to the ferocious beast room to gain martial points and increase his blood energy. However, he is startled without understanding why people are looking at him, and the crowd says that the pose he made was incredibly flashy and that he really copied Xing-hei's technique. He simply cannot believe that he was doing all those movements in the real world as well as inside the system. Because of this, he runs away like a cannonball, since everyone is begging him to keep doing that movement, and at that moment, he realizes he is being followed. This is because the duo he defeated has finally found him seeking revenge and noticed that he is going to the ferocious beasts room, so they believe they should go as well to beat him up when he comes out. In the ferocious beasts room, several warriors are gathered. Tiantuo asks if Xiaoyan really wants to compete to see who kills more ferocious beasts, and she replies that she just wants to know which of them is number 1 in the training camp. He asks her not to believe that spiritual mental power can defeat the body of the wild god, since that would be underestimating it too much. She retorts that actually he is the one underestimating others. The MC watches and finds it interesting to see a spiritual mind master, since he has never seen one fight in person and believes it is better to watch first, since he can kill the beast later to gain points. On the big screen, he sees her flying, and this surprises Soo-hong, since techniques that allow walking in the air are only used by great masters, and now he understands her specialty. She gathers energy in her hand and fires countless lasers that finish off all the supreme level beasts, and the MC finds this incredible, since in moments, she killed 3 black tigers of level 1 at the maximum stage. But he is curious about those rays of light. At that moment, another much larger tiger attacks from behind, but she simply paralyzes it in the air, making Soo-hong understand that spiritual force can control and throw enemies by force. She uses her laser once more to kill the monster, and only then he understands that the rays of light are actually daggers. The MC trembles with excitement at so many different abilities he witnessed and knows it is no wonder that every spiritual master is absurdly strong, since they can easily crush ordinary warriors. Suddenly, everyone shouts, questioning what giant sword is that they are seeing. This is because Xiaoyan materialized a giant sword in front of the black python, and with just one movement cuts the monster in half as if cutting butter. The MC is shocked by such power, since he was sure the girl did not have a weapon and that it must weigh several tons. Xing-hei approaches the crowd and says that this is the exclusive martial ability of spiritual mind masters, which is also rank A. Everyone shouts that they have never heard of a martial ability exclusive to spiritual mind masters, and, to make it worse, it is another rank A technique. They soon deduce that Tiantuo must also have a technique of this level. He replies that obviously the guy has it too. The MC gets excited about this, since all 3 geniuses have rank A techniques, and he is even more certain that it was the best decision of his life to appear at that training camp. Tiantuo also goes on killing the ferocious beasts, but even killing with one punch, they realize he is using only ordinary physical strength. Soo-hong reflects that the guy has no intention of using his martial ability at that moment, and decides to learn it later, since now he only wants to become a spiritual mind master. But his spirit is still at 26, and as far as he knows, it is necessary to have more than 100 spirit points to become a master. He becomes more and more motivated since he is eager to gain the remaining 73 points and will kill as many monsters as possible. The duo of bullies seeking revenge sees the MC entering the monsters room and decides to follow, since no one is paying attention because they are focused on Tiantuo's screen, and it is the perfect chance to beat the MC. However, they are shocked, since in the room where Su-hong is, he is doing something impossible to imagine. The boys ask if he really wants to kill himself, since he is challenging a dozen ferocious beasts at the same time, and all of them are at the upper stage of level 1, and this is complete insanity. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.